Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pronago, bringing you some more Tyrant's Tale Open Qualifier action. This time around, I took the effort of either securing or generating a third game to make sure that the screen is actually visible on the stream the very first way through. If you missed the last game, we saw a 2-0 in favor of Shopkeeper Dog over Smarty Cakes. Now, on the opposite side of the lower bracket, we've got 3Crow taking on jakulangski, the Zerg player there from the Philippines, being our favorite in this match in theory, but 3Crow, he's got some interesting builds as our American Protoss player. So let's see what happens. The maps are, of course, Paradise, Cold Sweat, Maxiom. We're going to start things off on a 4-spawn map, and we go back to a 4-spawn map if we need it. jakulangski will be, I'm guessing, Midnight Green Zerg here in the top left, and 3Crow, Big Caw clan, of course. I'm going to guess this one is... It's not just green. Is this vine green, maybe? Dark green. I was thinking dark green, but then I was thinking it's too good to be true. Nobody ever goes dark green, etc., etc. So, yes, in Cosmonarchy, we've got over 100 player colors. I've said that probably 100 times now, but yes, it is true. And as a result, I like to guess the colors a little bit here and there. So Cosmonarchy, obviously very different than Starcraft 1, but based on it, built on it. Soon it will, or eventually I should say, it will have an extra race and a bunch of other cool things that are much more bespoke. But for now, this is what we got. We got some interesting 1v1 competitions going. We got lots of maps here. We're playing on a map that is by BiddyB, and one of our proudest and most staunch supporters from, as far as it's concerned. You're talking about... a guy who's been around for a while and has been contributing for a very long time, so big ups on that. And he's made a version of Dante's Peak. He's ported it here. So I don't know what 3Crow is up to, but he's actually opening with a Warden, and this is kind of screwing up his worker resource returns. But he's also not harvesting any Vespene, so this can't be a play where he's going for... okay, it's a gateway, Warden gateway. I think he might expect a 7 pool or something like that. That's why his pylon is very defensive, and then the Warden opener is a bit odd. Now he's harvesting some Vespene. I was going to say, like, I just kind of expected he would do some kind of lattice play, because he did like to do that versus Veek in the previous set, and also versus Jujic in another set. I didn't actually cast the Veek set, but he has been felled by Veek 7 in a 2-0 fashion to come down to the lower bracket, and that was after 2-0ing Jujic, which we did cast, Mesk and myself. So that was very interesting. Elsewhere in the bracket, yeah, I think that was it. So this is the first game that 3Crow's played since his play versus Veek, putting on another pylon campaign style on opposite sides of the Nexus. We love that visual, but I don't know. I'm not sure what 3Crow's cooking up over here. Now, jakulangski will finally scout his opponent, and the Warden almost killed his worker. I can't believe that almost happened, but now it will go ahead and burrow. Larvosk is already up here for extra worker production. This does cost a pretty penny in terms of Vespene. We did see that jakulangski had gone for the pool opener. He's got some Zeths moving around and seeing what's up. And a rogue gallery after the gateway. I wonder what's going on here. This SimCity is a little cursed to look at, but it shouldn't result in any units getting stuck, and that's the main thing. That Zeth will get a full scout off, but I don't think Jack was actually looking. We can see the mini-map boxes there, and now you can see him unburrowing the worker so he can actually scout what these structures are. He wanted to make sure about that because he didn't actually stay on top of his game when the Zeth went in. We got the Ovalef coming out here to load up the Kagrant. That's going to allow him to... Jack actually pioneered this style. We called it Degen Zerg for a little bit because he would actually do that as the... nice memory there for 3Crow to actually know where that worker is. You can stand on burrowed units to reveal them. Jack pioneered the strategy of basically using the Ovalef to migrate a Kagrant so that you could set up static defense on the low ground because you can unload without the Kagra being there. A Kagra being our name for creep. And so now Jack can theoretically establish a bit of a foothold. It looks like he's banked enough Vespene to go for another Larvosk. It's 125, so he's actually floating a little bit there. And I'm expecting that he's going to want to expand pretty soon. This doesn't look like a very optimized build order to me on the Zerg's side. But, I mean, looking at what 3Crow is cooking, I don't know if you need too many optimizations. Now, that being said, he does have a couple of Ecclesiasts. It looks like he's going to be doing like Ecclesiast Zealot Vagrant, which I guess could work. So Ecclesiasts are basically these supportive units that act in versus Zerg as kind of anti-melee, because Zerg will try to attack, say, any sort of unit with their frontline aspect, and then, that will come out and we'll see the Zeths here try to do some melee damage, and obviously they're just going to get shut down because the Ecclesiasts are going to restore the shields of things like the Zealots. Now, this Zealot is charged in here and just kind of Three Crow forgot about it, I think, and so it ends up dying on the front line. But you can also see how far and exposed that Circuit is, and how like the Zeth could have just run in and started causing havoc. It would have been picked off by those Zethar cores, but still, not exactly what you want. This Avaleth could be hunted down, but Three Crow's not exactly on the ball. Maybe he'll be able to try to chase it down now, but I feel like it's not going to end up working out. The moving shots haven't been happening there. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. And in fact, he actually ends up picking the Quasis instead. He definitely could have chased that down. So Three Crow's going to go throw down the pylon yet again at the natural. He had to cancel the previous one, and he'll be moving in with a Nexus pretty soon. Just an extra pylon as well for more stuff. So Nexus off center, a classic move. I would cancel that myself, but I don't think Three Crow's noticed yet. And the Vornath is coming, so I'm guessing Jack wants to do some kind of Vorv Zeth flood versus this kind of composition. But again, the anti-melee is here with many Ecclesiasts, right? It's actually a very minimal front line with the Zealots being so low in number. But with all these Ecclesiasts and also with a couple of Vagrants, like, the Ecclesiasts are underwhelming for damage. The Zealots are pretty good for it. The Vagrants are like slightly above average, and then they become much better when they actually die. So now the Vorvs are out. Those are the winged Zethar cores that apply and snare, and they also reduce armor by 1. So that ends up being pretty significant. The Zealots kind of have a double whammy interaction there because they have 3 armor, but if their shields get popped, they go down to 2 armor. So as soon as that ends up happening, that's a big favor for the Zerg army that's going to see if it can basically just overwhelm this position. Now that Kagran didn't get focused down, so that Circuit will end up remaxing, and as a result, I mean, all of the front line's already gone. There wasn't really that much here. We are trying to use the movement speed from the fallen Ecclesiasts to maybe reposition on the side of the Protoss, and a very nice couple extra picks there on the retreat. He's going to see if he can come on in and try to snipe this down, but he's not going to be getting any of the shield restores. He does end up doing that, so if I'm Jack, I am remorphing that. Indeed, it looks like he's going to. The Vorv wasn't here to actually debuff these units, but it looks like finally this force will end up getting cleaned up. Three Crow overstaying his welcome and floating a lot of minerals in the process, but he has forced his opponent to make a lot of extra military units as opposed to workers. Meanwhile, we've got a third gate. We're producing okay. Definitely this Warden along all by its lonesome is not going to be enough. We're going to need to set up like a makeshift wall over here, I think. Maybe like an extra... a Grand Library. Okay, I mean, not exactly part of the wall, but I was thinking an extra gateway and then just kind of like blocking it here, because if you place buildings diagonally, they do tend to block stuff. With the exception of I think the gateway would probably still not be Zeth type, but this is working out pretty well for him. If those Ecclesiasts had restored the shields of those Zealots by attacking targets nearby them, I think they would have stayed alive a little bit longer, but one of them's already fallen. But you can see how back at home, the home field advantage definitely favoring that Ecclesiast composition once Three Crow corrected his positioning, especially with the absence of Vorvs to reduce armor, reduce attack speed, etc. That ends up helping out quite a bit. So this Avaleth is going to get out of there. Have a couple of spankings on the ass on the way out, and of course there's more and more workers being made. Embassy's already done, so this is going to be extra worker production. And you can see Three Crow trying to be a little bit cheeky. Maybe he wanted to hunt down that Avaleth finally, but he ends up taking a lot of hull damage on a Vagrant and, of course, a Zealot. Not anything confirmed because the focus fire wasn't quite there, but now we've got an Atreus coming. So Atreus are pretty good at dealing crowd control damage. They fire very fast. They're kind of like a splash damage Dragoon in some ways, right? We have Drakidins here instead of Dragoons, but that kind of combat role. Not very fast, mind you, but they did get movement speed buffed recently, so they're a little bit different as a result. The Atreus will be out pretty soon, so we'll get to see that unit in play. We've got more defense and extra pylons coming down here in the main base. Vagrants watching for any potential drops. And look at this, a drop in the natural. Not exactly what Three Crow was expecting. He hasn't lost any workers yet, to his credit. He has ended up pulling them away, but I think a couple of them are going to get picked down here on the side. No, it doesn't look like it. He just needs to correct them. Now, here comes the attack on the front, but he's not really going to be able to find too much purchase with that. Again, Jack doesn't really have the most of his military. Now, he has built some Lakizilisks. Obviously, the classic lurker-style graphic here. You can tell that when it burrows, it's a little bit more visible. And again, you can stand on burrowed units to reveal them. But even though there was an embassy for a very long amount of time, there wasn't actually any witnesses made for detection. Now, at this point, Jack still has to fall away, and he's going to lose both of those Lakizilisks. That is not ideal. We've got a Hydrith Den being made behind this, so Jack will be specking into some additional units, but he's already hemorrhaging so many, and Three Crow is going to continue. He's only now resaturated his main, or natural rather, if you can call it resaturating. Avaleth up here in the mid-right there for jakulangski. just continuing to scout, gonna feign on in, and maybe 3-Crow will overreact to that if he sees it. And so he'll be like, oh my god, he's dropping me again. But no, he's forced him out, so I feel like that's pretty good. A couple of Lakis are indeed on the way. We got more of them coming, actually. Some Zoryus for the front line. So when this unit gets attacked, it actually spawns a life-stealing broodling. Really Rokor is what they're called here, but you can think of it as like a broodling that gains some lifesteal. And so the Zoryus ends up being a pretty productive member of Zerg society, I would say. Zet's kind of fanning out and seeing what more they can do. We got a Warden coming up over here behind the mineral line, and a second one for good measure. That's going to be the anti-drop deterrence. One thing I have noticed is that I usually like to waypoint my units towards the enemy, basically wherever I'm attacking, right? And we still don't have any witness here for 3-Crow, so he's not really going to be able to attack into that without losing a lot of the zealots. I mean, once you get to this number of Lakis, you're really going to start penetrating. Now, he's going to come in here and posture to shut down a third, but there is no third, which is a little uncharacteristic of Jack. Instead, he's going to go for an attack, but I don't know if he was expecting the army to be up here. Now, the Zoryus does end up making some contact. We see an immediate fallback, but so many zealots are very, very wounded here. The flash shielding going to kick in and try to help, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. That's another Lakis going down. Not very efficient yet for Jack, but now he can really start to lay into this Protoss force. And 3-Crow doing well to try to kite away using that Ecclesiast bonus to stay away from the zealots where he can. Some of his vagrants have already been turned to shades. Those are the ones taking damage over time over here until they inevitably time out. Meanwhile, I think 3-Crow's back at home trying to set up a third base. He does end up going for 6 o'clock. He ignores the traditional third on this map. And now the Lakis are going to inch forward. There's only 4 of them. In fact, one of them is going to end up going down immediately. The other one should be an easy focus, but the Zealot loses aggro thanks to that burrow. And again, he wasn't standing exactly on it, so he couldn't reveal it to the rest of his crew. And now 3-Crow is going to have to fall back. Now, again, I was talking about reinforcing directly by having the rally points set to the enemy base. The trade-off here is that if there's a counterattack or some kind of drop attack, then 3-Crow's reinforcements back at home, his next production cycles, etc., would have been able to catch that. Now, you can see the splash damage really helping out with these Atreus. It's just annihilating a lot of those Zets. Now, one of them does end up going down. Now the Lakis are burrowed. 3-Crow has to respond to that, but he's not really reacting as fast as he needs to. He ends up losing a Zealot and 2 Ecclesiasts on the way out. Lake is getting a little bit of extra damage, but they are going to have to move away because Jack doesn't have that many military units coming alongside. It is a bunch of Lakis, but he lost most of his Zeths, right? And those are kind of like the fodder units, so you want to occupy the enemy forces. You can see those Rilla Rokors being pesky, but they end up falling eventually anyway. Now, what is the tech here for 3-Crow? He's going to go for the Argosy as his follow-up. So far, I think he's done pretty well to actually be ahead in terms of economic tempo. He's got a lot of minerals. I would definitely take another expansion at this point. Maybe think about adding more static defense structures in a couple of key locations out here as a bit of an outpost, because 3-Crow does like to play that style, and he's banking on being able to stay alive for a very long time. He still does not have any witnesses, despite having the embassy, which is a grave mistake. I'd really hate to see him lose his army because of that, because, you know, he has the tools to respond to it. He's just not making them, right? Now he does need to stop this this gateway from being burst down, in my estimation. He's going to see if he can try to engage the army, but again, without a witness, it's going to be pretty difficult. Looks like maybe that piece will end up falling down. He doesn't have that much production. He's floating so many minerals already that it feels really bad to end up losing this. Now finally making the witness, making that necessary step, but he's got to think about what he wants to do with the gateway. He's going to go ahead and build another Argosy as his first one finishes. Not very much Vespene to actually start making any units here. And again, he's starting to queue up some stuff, but the Amaranths are out. They will shield steal to stay alive for a lot longer, but with no Ecclesia support, no detection, even that Nexus at the third is going to have to be canceled. Hydra's coming in. They're going to do some pretty good upfront damage as the Lake is leapfrog forward for jakulangski, trying to carve up this army. But still, nothing is being made out of that Argosy. I'm looking at the production tab. I don't see a Solarian, an Empyrean, anything that can really help with this force. And now most of the units are going to be routed. He wisely does not lead him to the 6 o'clock location. Jakulangski is just going to think, okay, I'm going to 2-base all in this guy. He had to cancel his third. He's not really going to be thinking about that. Now, here comes another burrow, and there's nothing to detect because the witness is made. Well, I'll tell a little bit of a lie because it is right over here, but it's not within range. And so now, indeed, the Matrix and the Warden are going to help out. The Matrix has a similar passive to the Ecclesiast where it actually restores shields like that. Tier 2 now on the way for Jack off of the 2-base play. He does have a worker in place to take a third, but he's not going to go for it just yet. Here come the Lakis, once again burrowing, and this could close the door on 3-Crow because, again, he did not make units for the longest time, had a huge float, I thought he was in a position to maybe win this game or at least stay alive and stay in contention for longer. But not being able to spend that money, now he's got to resort to maybe battle workers or at the very least transferring them out to the main so they don't all die, go up in flames, because that Nexus is probably not going to stay alive. Desperately holding on with just the epigraphs being made, but these are single target bad boys. They do not do the necessary DPS, not all by themselves. If those were Empyreans, they deal splash. If they were Solarians, they'd at least instill some kind of psychological fear. But we've got no power to the Argosies. He's going to desperately try to remake it. He's got a bunch of Wardens in the main that are going to slowly chip away at the front line. But I'm pretty sure Jack has done it here, and he is the favorite to take this set. So this does not necessarily surprise me, but I want to say that despite a very inefficient opening, I thought 3Crow was going to be able to maybe walk through this and take it. And, you know, you can see here, Jack just had control of the game with a constant military flood, catching Protoss players off guard a little bit by that. This was not an economic play by Jack. This is not even a technological play by Jack. He was able to make his opponent crumble through steady drip feeding, a lot of tier 1. Even then, he didn't use the evolved, den. He didn't use the evolved, he did use the evolved pool a little bit for Vorbs, but he wasn't really making them later into the game. So he was mostly just relying on the basic strains, and that was just enough for him. So there you have it. Our first game in the bag for Jack. Let's move on to game number 2. We're going on a cold sweat here for map 2. Maxiom waiting in the wings if we need it. This is a 2-spawn map. And so cross spawns will continue to be enforced. We'll see if that happens on Maxiom as well. 3Crow in the top right. I'm going to guess red. Red Protoss. Yeah. And jakulangski down here in the bottom right. I feel like this is either wine, auburn, or mahogany. And it's a little bit too purple to be mahogany, right? So I'm going to guess wine. Oh, it was auburn. So I picked from a pool. I didn't end up going for Auburn, but that's the one. Okay, well, I guess you can say I'm 1.33333% correct. Or 1.3% out of 2. I don't know, whatever you want to call that. Well, it's not percent out of 2, but you know what I meant. Another defensive pylon here. jakulangski is going for the pool opener. So sometimes Zergs will end up going for a delayed pool after a Larvosk, or they'll go for the pool Kagrant. Well, a Kagrant pool Larvosk, something like that, where they'll make like the base structure and then evolve it after. And obviously that would require a lot of Vespene to be being harvested already, so Jack going for the pool opener. And yet again, a pylon into Warden. I wonder if 3Crow is hedging his bets because he's just expecting some kind of crazy all-in sort of play. But obviously as Zerg, if you're also going to worker scout, which again, if you're 7 pooling, you probably aren't worker scouting. You're just going to scout with the Zeths that pop out, or if it's going to be Quasis, then you scout with those. So there is that. But I don't know, looking at it, I wonder if it's not just a situation where you see this and you're like, oh, he actually loses the worker. That's a bit of a flub. But, that's what happens sometimes. So he's got these Zeths, but he can't do anything now with the Warden there. Worker's going to be in prime position to deny any pylon snipes or actual attacks on the Warden. This is screwing up the mining ever so slightly, but, it's going to go into a pretty traditional 2-gate opener at this point. He's probably going to go send those new workers on a gas, and then 3Crow will be sitting pretty for some units. I mean, I guess this is a play if you think your opponent is going to do that. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some kind of opener that can deal with this. I mean, if it's Zeths off of a 7 pool, I think your workers can also just deal with it. But if your pylon's all the way out here, then that can be a big problem, right? So it makes sense. The pylon placement, I can understand. But the opening Warden doesn't really seem right to me. So the workers should jump on this opportunity to thwart Jack's efforts, and indeed he will end up losing nearly every single Zeth. And in fact, every Zeth. There you go. And a redundancy pylon, second gate now up. But the first gate not making anything because of that mining interruption, and also because of the second Warden. It feels like maybe 3Crow had the 6th sense that this is going to be a pool rush. Now, what does Jack do as a response? Now going for the Larvosk, because gonna have a lot of Vespene in the bank after that. I don't know why he's attacking that. He's just end up hemorrhaging Zeths for no reason. No, definitely not going to finish that. And all right, well, we have a trepidatious, cautious game where 3Crow's gone for this gamble twice in a row. This time it paid off because Jack played into it. You know what I mean? Which is not exactly what I was expecting. So there you go. That's a thing. That's something. You can see here the Zethar cores are trying to inch a little bit further forward. One of them is just kind of hanging out like, hey, it's just me. I'm by myself. Back over here, the Larvos now coming online. Thwarting him off, running him off, saying sayonara. An embassy, okay. That's pretty safe, pretty solid. Jack's continuing to sort of patrol around here, but he's definitely remaining within the shot radius of the Wardens way too much. So he's actually going to end up losing most of his Zeths. I mean, not that he was going to be able to use them for much at this stage in the game, but, you know, if you end up going Vornath later, you can turn them into Vorvs. You can obviously just posture with them, and now there's just not really much of a threat. They all get cleaned up. So Jack has maybe taken his foot off the gas a little bit here. Foot off the oil, dare I say. And 3Crow's going to go for End Nexus. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting setup where he's kind of just like playing the economic game. He's got his embassy out already. He's going to be able to pump workers out of that. He's got his Nexus coming. Very low on the actual military side. So had Jack gone for like powered really heavily, this would have been a very different sort of game. But like as it stands, well, if 3Crow also moves out with this attack, this feels like overdoing it, right? Like you've got embassy, you've got Nexus, you're going to set up static defense over here. You're not going to have many reinforcements, if any. Your gateways are completely idle. And you're making workers. And that's great that you're making workers. But you're also attacking, like, all of those things at the same time. If this force gets wiped, Jack can just run across the map and probably kill those Wardens or snipe the pylon or something like that, right? Now, it really depends on how much damage he can do to this army without losing so much from the Zerg's perspective. And he is actually going to go ahead and pick off most of these units. He hasn't lost a single Quasilisk. If he just goes for, like, 6 pairs of Zeths here to reinforce his army, I think he can walk across the map. He's scouting what's happening. He didn't end up doing any actual hull damage to the Wardens there, so that was a bit of a missed opportunity that one Scout Zeth wound up giving him. And now 3Crow, he still didn't make any military units behind that, by the way, and he's got 400 minerals in the bank, so you can tell he's struggling a little bit. Now, so is Jack. A-moving across the map instead of at a rally point. He just sort of A-moved in here, and then his 2 frontline Zeths just ended up getting absolutely shellacked. We are going to see an Ovaleth here. I don't mind that whatsoever. Rogue Gallery double lattice speaks to me that it's going to be Vassal Barghest as the transition point. And now the Quasi's going to come in here and see what they can do. They're going to pick the worker, but the battle worker is fine. It's it looks on from its grave, and it witnesses multiple Wardens getting multiple kills. And the Zealots now charging out here, just laughing at the poor Quasi attacks. They could have killed one of those Zealots if they just stood and fought, but it wouldn't have been a very cost-efficient trade. So we are going to see the Kagrant, and then the Ovaleth will go ahead and scout. This is the same kind of strat that Jack has always done. I don't know. I feel like... I mean, Jack has caught up in worker count, which is kind of unbelievable because there's 3 worker production queues now. But I don't know if Jack was going to be able to continuously do it. He's making 1 pair of Nather cores, thanks to his Vornath. That is going to allow him to kind of scout around and see what's up a little bit faster than maybe the Ovaleth. Obviously, he knows that there's static defense at the main, but he doesn't know if there's static defense in the natural mineral line, so maybe he can use the Nather cores to harry that position. Making some Vorvs. I might consider dropping up here and then attacking into the natural or something like that, but we'll see what Jack actually wants to do, because he's going to fly in plain view of the Warden. And now, as soon as 3Crow sees this, he's going to go ahead and scramble a response. So, again, that feels a little bit... ambitious, perhaps, as Nats are going to come in here and see that the Scout is completely different as far as the strategy goes. So there is a brief window of time here where Jack can try to charge forward, break the pylon, and maybe punish the fact that 3Crow is doing so many things at once. He attacked across the map, he expanded, he built an embassy, he put some static defense down with no reinforcements. Then he decided to idle his gateways even longer so he could switch out into Lattice, Rogue Gallery, and now he's going to see if he can hold the fort with just a couple of Ecclesiasts and Zealots, plus the Wardens. Now, I don't know what was being focused down here, but it was not the right thing. Jack was not focusing down the pylon to shut down the Wardens, and he did not pair off the Vorvs into each Warden to slow their attack speed. So he will eventually break the static defense, but now he doesn't have enough military units to actually contend with all the Ecclesiasts. And I don't know exactly what happened with that fight, but it did not go Jack's way whatsoever. He is going to go for the Hydroth follow-up, but he still has no natural, and his opponent up by 12 workers, by the way, floating crazy money, and assembling the Air Force, the Protoss hit squad. With enough Barghests and enough Vassals, you ignore the armor of the structures and you basically snipe them down. Not for free, but for a very, very low cost, I would say. So it's going to be a gateway lattice sort of makeshift wall as the 2 Wardens are going to go ahead and get reestablished. The Ecclesiasts, by their shield passive, also benefit buildings. So that is going to be really difficult to bust. The Ovaleth coming back across the map to see what it can scout. Doesn't have anything in its cargo hold. And now we're going to see if maybe Skither cores are going to be the answer. I guess he's preempting the Vassal spam, because he kind of scouted that down. So he's going to go for the ski-backed Scab, which is not a toilet. And he's going to go ahead and pump out some Skither cores. That's my prediction for what he's doing right now with that ski back. And also, I'm not sure that it's going to work because he's economically behind. He's on one base. He doesn't have much Vespene in the tank. He's made a lot of Spraiths already. His Avaleth is across the map, so it's not going to be there to detect the Barghests, but, you know, the Vassals are also pretty deadly, so there is that. I mean, taking out the Vassals takes out the DPS. The Barghests don't contribute a massive amount by comparison. Then they're also, I mean, they are much more expensive, so I guess if you can snipe them, it ends up being more impactful. But this ground force is not going to be able to do anything to the ground army and to the static defense into the wall. And Jack should know that just by looking at it. He's going to still posture around and see what he can do, but so he doubled down on the military, but he's still not going to go ahead and expand. He doesn't have any range. If he wants to attack this base, he needs Hydras or backs. You know, some kind of Hydra bust here could definitely work, I think. But he's still pumping the regular units, and these are fine for the soft contain, but you know, you got to watch out for what's cooking over here. This is like a very slow to assemble monument of sin. In that he's basically making like a much faster Star Sovereign or something. So a couple of skiths have been assembled. Hatchet only now going down 9 minutes and 45 seconds into the game. This kind of build, I think, like 3Crow is ahead, not really ahead, I guess, but maybe he was ahead in the previous game. There was probably a point in the game where he was ahead despite his silly build. This time his silly build worked because Jack did silly things into it, and that's not to take credit away from 3Crow per se. I just think like opening Warden into gate, like it's very safe. It's exceedingly safe. But Jack has just been throwing his head against a brick wall for most of this game, it feels like. You know, charging in. Now the ground army is looking pretty nice here for 3Crow. Like it's not nearly as high as it would be if he was not building the air army at the same time. But the fact that he's got an air army and a ground army, like that kind of combined arms can do a massive amount of damage. And Zet's killed the scribe that was headed out to expand. But 3Crow's up by almost double the work. I never thought I would see this because 3Crow's perennial issue is that he underbuilds workers. He slips up on macro. You can see with he floats money and stuff. I never thought I would see the day where he almost doubles jakulangski's worker count. Jack, known as the macro man in some ways. Like Nebline once said that he has throne room stage level macro, but his micro needs a lot to be desired, and maybe sometimes his compositions, or maybe just like general decision. I can't remember the other stuff, but he was like, you know, Jack's strength is in the late game macro. And, you know, he's not really playing towards it now, which is, you know, this is how you improve. You play a style that, you know, you're weak in. You try to get better at it. But right now, I definitely feel like the heavy focus on military versus a player who's ahead of you economically is not necessarily the right move because he's also ahead of you militarily right now. Talking about 34 of the vassals. And so that engagement, you know what? He doesn't lose a single skiff. So there is that, but he does lose the Avaleth. You know, he kills a couple of vassals. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. But he's going to need way more skiths than that. I think he realized that when he looked over. He's like, holy shit, there's so many vassals. But, you know, he can't exactly charge forward. There's double Matrix over here, triple Warden, plus all the Ecclesiast. You are not going to break that with tier 1 units. Certainly not without, like, going into some of the other branches. We don't see any Likizilisks. We don't see any Bactylisks. We don't even see any Hydras. And so now the engagement's coming in. The skiths charge forward. There is no splash damage, but instead the static defense, or sorry, the good target selection here for 3Crow is going to be enough to melt those units. And you can see the vassals immediately turn their attention. They know the threat of the skiths. The skiths are the splash damage, but 3Crow didn't have any, so he needed to immediately deal with that air stack by single target alone. And now the air fleet moving off to the side. Jakulangski, he's been down by workers for the whole game, basically. He's been down by tempo for a very significant part ever since his sort of early pool endeavors ended up flubbing. And now I think he's going to go down a map because I'm pretty sure we're looking at a 3Crow victory. At this point, we could just see an attack move. Like, it is that simple. Let's see if 3Crow makes it that way. Let's see what Jack can maybe try to do as he desperately puts down more static defense. But he doesn't have anything for the anti-surface. His skiths are all the way on the other side, but the Air Force is coming in while the ground force attack moves into the natural, and all the anti-air defenses are gone. The Larvosks are sniped, and now Vagrant Barghast is going to do it again here. Only 5 Skither cores, and look at the ground force just slicing and dicing its way in. There goes the last Spraith. There is no more hope. Jakulangski has been defeated on Cold Sweat, a map by Veek 7, and 3Crow is going to take us to a decider. There's only moments away, I'm sure, from the realization setting in that with 3.3 thousand minerals, 3Crow has won. And that's 3. There you go. He waited until he was about to kill the Hatcherusk, and then he left. Good stuff, good stuff. All right, hey, we have a tie series. Let's move on to the final map and really settle this once and for all. Well, I hope you packed your bags, because, wait a second, this isn't the right replay. Well, all right, we've got the right replay now. We've got Big Caw 3 Crow in the top left. We've got jakulangski in the top right. And isn't this, what is this color? Is this, it's not Celadon, and it's not asparagus, but it's some light green color. The name makes me feel like it's asparagus, but I know asparagus is a bit more faint than this. And it's not Harlequin, but it's also not emerald. I'll guess emerald, but I know it's wrong. Oh, never mind. I knew it was right the whole time. Meanwhile, 3 Crow over here as, dude, what is this color? Electric orange, maybe? No, electric orange is deeper than that. Yeah, I'm kind of out on this one. Is this bronze? No, vivid orange. Okay. Well, now I know. All right, guys, I've totally forgotten my record so far on the color guessing, but we have yet another game where 3 Crow is going to open Warden first. We are tied up 1-1 with 3 Crow taking that last game on Paradise Cross Spawns. This is the only map that won't be cross spawn, because it was, or sorry, I guess the Paradise game was not the game that he won. That was the first game, and then in Cold Sweat. So we had cross spawns back to back. Now we have vertical spawns, and jakulangski will scout first. It's yet another early pool, but this time the Kagrant is going to come first, so we have a little bit of an advantage here for Jack, because he hasn't decided to go for pool first into the Warden opener. So he will have a little bit more on the economic side. And you know what? I mentioned in the last cast that how, you know, Jack was practicing in some ways being a little bit more aggressive, because he has had some problems with being aggro to the point where, you know, his preferred way to win has been the more macro-oriented stuff. And since he was up 1-0 in the set on the time of Cold Sweat, it does kind of make sense to me that Jack would go for something a little bit more maybe experimental, aggressive, etc. Try to just like catch his opponent off guard and immediately try to slap to him. And he got some valuable experience in that. I feel like he'll be able to make good decisions about, you know, when to turn that on or off in the future. Now going into this decider of the series, he should revert back to his typical level of play, which historically has done better than 3 Crow in terms of like the opponents that he's taken down and the games that he's played and stuff like that. So it will be a couple of gateways here for our Protoss. We've got Zethracor's coming, the Burrowed Worker, Krankendow style. This is like in between Crank, who would put it like here, and Shambler, who would put it here. So this is like a Crankblur or Shambledow. I don't know, something like that. Zeths are just going to kind of run around here and see what's going on, but they see 2 gate. A second Warden coming as well. 3 Crow not bothering to scout this game, so he's a little bit ahead economically based on that from what he could be doing. But he also has kind of missed a couple of worker cycles here and there, so like if this had been executed with perfect precision, the idea to not scout, you know, you can maybe justify the earlier Warden. I don't know about Warden first. I wonder if the math has been figured out on Pylon Gate Warden as the opener, if you're going to do that instead of Pylon Warden Gate. Because then, like, you have enough for the second gate or a Warden, the same resource cost, obviously, 150 minerals each. So since you have enough for all of those, I wonder if, like, you couldn't just do Pylon Gate Warden and then still be defensive versus a 7 pool, but not, like, giving up so much, right? That's, like, the main thing that I would say. So the Vornath is already up. We are seeing a lot of Zethrakors and a couple of Quasis come out. And so it looks like it will be a Vornath Flood. But the SimCity is looking really nice for 3 Crow. He's got the double pylon. I don't know if this pylon powers this Warden and vice versa, but at the very least, like, the double pylon is going to be helpful for the production. He's got a lattice coming up that's going to really reduce the surface area that you can attack this Warden with. So I feel like actually trying to bust the base here is not necessarily going to work. And instead, Jack is going to need to maybe get some army dominance out on the map so he can safely expand. Now, his worker has caught the move out on the ramp, but that last Ecclesiast kind of errantly walking around it, and 3 Crow being on an attack move means that worker is going to succumb. We do have a little bit of a couple hits here and there, and Cliff Advantage allows that Ecclesiast to get a fadeaway shot. But nothing too significant just yet. Now, Jack is not going to go for a surround or a charge onto the back line. Instead, he's just going to see if he can muscle down the Zealots. And now that all the Ecclesiasts attacking, it feels like this is the kind of time where you really got to watch out if you're in Jakulangski's shoes. The focus fire wasn't quite there on the Zealots, and so this looks like a situation where we could see 3-Crow muscle on and for some serious damage. The K-Grunt might need to be deployed on the ramp. It looks like that's exactly what Jack is going to do. 3-Crow doesn't have any reinforcements coming, so he will end up being overwhelmed now that his Zealot coverage is gone. But he did force the K-Grunt. Now, it is going to get canceled and relocated because Jack is cognizant of the fact that he's, safe now. He's waited for his reinforcements, but I guess the question comes, do you criticize 3-Crow for charging up the ramp in that situation and pressing his advantage when he knew that he didn't have any reinforcements coming? He did leave his structures idle a little bit. It looks like he's setting up for... I thought he would be setting up for a natural, but no. He's actually going to add an embassy here and probably a rogue gallery pretty soon. The ground army coming out here. We have the Circuit in the front. This is very exposed, by the way, and no expansion coming just yet. So pretty steady on. The ramp charge is a go, and I think it was a big mistake from Jack. He's actually going to lose most of his units here. I think he picked a single Ecclesiast in that whole mess. Not ideal. You can see the player-colored remains of the Zetricors, by the way. That's something that was added in fairly recently. I think good to have, for sure. All right, with the embassy on the way, we've got some static defense coming. He's actually locked one of his mineral fields off. That's unfortunate because that is 2 workers completely nullified. So you can subtract 2 workers from Jack here until the Ovaleth comes in and scoops them up if he even realizes. Vassal's going to get bopped by the Quasis, and looks like the Circuit will hold for now, although it can be overwhelmed. Like, 3-Crow could just use the Ecclesiasts to charge on forward here and pop the rest of this. So there it goes. One Zealot still holding somewhat strong here. But the Ecclesiasts are falling a lot. The Vassals are going to give a little bit of coverage as the Circuit goes ahead and remorphs. Man, that is so rough. I mean, the mineral efficiency is going to be super, super bad there for Jack. And he is, again, he's now down 3 workers instead of only 1. A lot of static defense coming up by the ramp here. I think a little bit of a overcorrection by 3-Crow, but he has the forces necessary to deal with this. And the Vassals coming out here shouldn't be that much of a surprise to Jack. But let's see if he's going to try to press his advantage. I mean, the Warden isn't done yet. But yeah, it doesn't really look like he can fight this army. His Avaleth is here, but mostly just for scouting and vision up the ramp. Does pick a Zealot. That's actually pretty good. This has been pretty minimal Zealot production so far by 3-Crow. Pretty minimal worker production as well. Jack now up by workers. Got some Lakizilisks up. More and more units streaming back across the map. We've had a lot of back and forth in this game. These 2 players being pretty down and dirty in the early stages. That's something that 3-Crow himself wasn't really doing that much in the previous set. Is like, I guess on Paradise he did march across the map, and on Cold Sweat he marched across the map with a small band as he also expanded after an embassy, so it was like doing everything. And I felt like Jack could have potentially won with a counterattack, but didn't end up finding the timing. But like, the sustained back and forth, usually it's like one player tries and then waits a very long time, or the other player tries and waits a very long time. That's how it seems to have been. I guess Paradise is a little bit more back and forth thinking about it, but still pretty interesting. Oh man, these 2 workers being stuck. I'm just going to look back at that every time. Every time. We're going to get some Vorvs morphed. We got the Zorkish Shroud, obviously, because at least, 3 Lakizilisks might be something. I mean, there is no Witness yet, but I think 3-Crow may have learned his lesson because his Witness is about to pop. He does see the Vassals, but rather the Lake is, but I think the Vassal count is high enough that all of these Quas are going to get absolutely shellacked, and then you just don't have any anti-air with the main force. So the Vassals can continue to pick. Sure, you've got your Lake is, but you got to watch out, man. There's not even an expansion here, so I think 3-Crow is going to feel pretty good about his situation. Without that much anti-air, you can definitely pick these Larvosks. There's only the 1 Spraith. Don't free the workers! Don't free them, 3-Crow! No! No, you're gonna free them if you keep attacking that. Let's see, he changes the mark immediately. I feel like this is an overcommittal. He is gonna pick up 1 worker, but that's not gonna matter too much, although he is up by workers for the time being. Oh man, Jack, you could have taken that opportunity to move it with your Avaleth. Lattice is being added here. Natural Nexus gonna come up. So 3-Crow once again in command of the game. Remember, Jack has been doing this like fake expand thing where he puts it super far forward. Now the Witness is here, but hey, these Ecclesiasts are very easily lined up. However, 1 of them going down, 2 of them, 3 of them going down. Okay, that's not too bad. And of course, when 1 of them pops, the you know, the whole vengeance mechanic where they get the movement speed allows them to relocate. So here come the vassals. You know, you get enough vassals and you can try to contend with this quasi set, but the Ovileth does provide vision for that witness, and now all of a sudden we've got 2 Lakizilisks, one of which very bruised, but just immediately bopped. So 3Crow is going to need to rebuild that witness if he wants better detection. So far, I don't know if he's noticed the popping. And it looks like Jack will finally think about setting his sights on an expansion, but it's pretty late. This is some of the latest expanding I've seen out of Zerg. And I'm not sure that it's super beneficial. Because he's not really leveraging it for a tech-up advantage either. Nor really a military advantage, right? He's breaking even, essentially. Denying any massive trades here and there. But there it is, the hatch coming down now. Game will go on to 2 bases. 21 vassals and counting. We've got a rogue gallery coming for that inevitable Barghest support. We got 4 lattices pumping them out. I didn't see if we have another witness, but it doesn't look like it, and he's making workers out of the embassy right now, so still no active detection, but it looks like 3Crow is going to jump on that opportunity to put some damage on that lake, as if it decides to reposition, then it will be a little bit more worse for wear. One of them immediately getting sniped. We still have 4 of them in this area, so 3Crow is still under the pump a little bit. But look, as the Quasis get thinned out by the vassal count, eventually the ground units really can't do anything. It's pure Ecclesiast right now, no Zealots whatsoever. That's really what I think 3Crow is missing right now. He can't really stand on top of the Lakes to reveal them. Needs to be very active here, and the Lakes are offering themselves up, but not going to be pressured. Instead, 23 vassals. They are going to charge forward and eliminate all of the Quasilisks. So this is going to take the teeth out of this push, because as soon as the lake is inevitably on burrow, you've got yourself a problem. Unfortunately, a scribe dies to brood spawn. I can't believe it. More Quasis are going to wander into this and definitely not take a favorable trade, because there are way too many vassals for this kind of thing to play off. And you can see 3Crow's happy to just take this fight and maybe just go after that Ovileth next. Yep, that one's not gonna get away from us. So okay, we've got the Barghests, we've got another witness out that's going to reveal the lake is, but they end up hightailing it out of there. So all good there. 6 worker advantage for 3Crow. Finally, this mineral field got depleted, so they can actually escape. I just can't believe that that's been a problem this whole time. More and more Quasis popping out. The lake is now moving across. I mean, the ground army is okay. The witness doesn't seem to still be here. Oh, no. Is it? Where's the witness? Is it with the... Yeah, it's with the army right now. So that's a little bit of a problem for 3Crow, because he's not actually going to be able to defend the ground push. But it looks like Jack doesn't want to do that right now. He's actually going to lose this hatch because of the Barghest. There we go. Some lake is moving forward. The ground army seeing if it can maybe trade over here, but he's losing the Larvosks. That is a difficult pill to swallow. Remember, the Barghest providing that armor penetration. These Spraiths will not work out in favor of Jack, and now he's going to start to really lose a lot of steam with these Quasis. Now, I think with the vassal count here, it's getting low enough that the Quasis might be able to push them out. Yeah, it looks like that's going to be the case. The one Barghest is still here, and look at that, remorphing one of the Larvosks into a Spraith. Nice thinking. So it looks like Jack is not dead yet, but I mean, this is not looking good for him. Look, we're even going to get that 1 extra armor pen, and that's going to help take down that Kagran. Circuith and Kagran, that's very bad. He almost lost the Barghest there, which was not ideal, but let's see. Jack has decided, I think he's just going to go for a move out. He's trying to add more Spraiths here, but the last Larvosk is gone. I don't know. He's going to have to see if he can fight this. I mean, the witness is here to detect. We still have... Okay, the Barghest is gone. No more armor penetration. The structures are going to be a lot more potent, but the worker count is depleting so much. Yeah, this is looking really rough. I mean, those vassals can still... Okay, never mind. The witness wasn't there to detect. I was going to say that that worker could end up dying, but Jack is down by 22 workers. Has no natural. And I feel like this is the point where he's going to get eliminated. Like, 3Crow has done so much pressure, and the choice du jour for Jack has not been the right move, right? He's sending out another fleet of 22 vassals, now up to 3 Barghests, which, by the way, that's going to completely eliminate the Hacharosk armor penetration. The push is going to come in. Nexus is immediately evacuated. I feel like this is the critical error. This is it, because, like, what are you going to really do in this position? You don't have any anti-air? Like, this air fleet will just annihilate you. Here come the Quasi's back, but it's too late. It's too late. You're going to lose all your production, and that's the end of the game right there, man. You've got nothing else. There's nothing. I'm looking around the map. Jack, you've lost it, brother. You got nothing. That's it. Defeated. 3Crow wins by elimination in the final situation. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I thought I heard some kind of fuss about a base trade, like some warning or something to that effect. Like, hey, there was a base trade in this game. I guess it wasn't really much of a trade. Jack didn't push in, and he was not going to be able to win that anyway. Zerg does have a little bit of a disadvantage in base race situations because their production is a bit more centralized. So maybe there's some open conversation we can have about, like, should tech structures count towards the elimination condition instead of it just being factories, right? Because for Zerg, that means it's just the hatch and the Kagran, the Larvosk, and stuff like that. So, you know, these are things to consider. But in that situation, Jack was so dead to rights. He had no real way to muscle up the ground army that 3Crow had amassed, and kind of a similar fate to how Cold Sweat went, but a very different opener. So Jack will bow out as a 2-1 victory here for 3Crow, sets him up for a decider against Shopkeeper Dog. That will decide who faces the loser of our upper qualification. That's between Mystery Meat and Veek 7. So whoever loses between those two players faces the winner of 3Crow and Shopkeeper Dog. Hope you guys are enjoying the qualifier so far. We only have a couple more matches to play, so stay tuned for those, and I'll see you guys very soon.